Okay, let's do a deep dive today into just one chapter, Jeremiah 45. It's short, but wow, it packs a punch.
It really does. It sort of pulls the camera back from these huge prophecies and zooms right in on one person's reaction.
Yeah, exactly. So the scene is, Jeremiah the prophet is dictating these incredibly heavy prophecies from God, stuff about judgment, things falling apart.
And his scribe, Baruch, son of Neriah, he's the one writing it all down.
But then right there in the middle of it all, we get this like incredibly personal cry from Baruch himself. It just jumps out at you.
Mhm. The text actually quotes him. He says, "Woe to me, the Lord has added sorrow to my pain. I am worn out with groaning and find no rest."
Woe to me. I mean, it's so raw, isn't it? So human. Here's this guy, he's right there at the center recording God's word about massive events,
Right.
but he's completely focused on his own pain.
Mhm.
He's worn out, groaning, can't find rest. You really feel for him what's actually going on around him that leads to this.
Well, the text tells us immediately. It gives that crucial context. Right as Baruch is feeling this deep personal pain,
Uh,
God is saying, and this is what Baruch is writing down,
okay.
"I will overthrow what I have built and uproot what I have planted throughout the land."
So it's not just a personal bad day. His world is literally being undone. God's talking about total disruption, tearing everything down.
Exactly. Widespread judgment,
Yeah.
foundational collapse. His personal agony is happening right alongside this massive divine deconstruction project, you can say.
Wow. Okay, so he feels crushed personally while, the whole structure of society is being threatened.
Mhm.
And it's right then, in that moment, that God actually turns his attention specifically to Baruch. The text says, say this to him.
Precisely. And, given Baruch's cry about being worn out and needing rest, you might expect God to offer some comfort maybe.
Yeah, you'd think so. Some reassurance, perhaps.
But that's not quite what happens.
Yeah.
The message is different.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. So what does God tell this guy who's just poured out his heart about being exhausted and full of sorrow?
The command is really direct
Mm.
and maybe a bit counterintuitive. Should you then seek great things for yourself? Seek them not.
Seek them not. Wow. In the middle of all this personal pain and like universal collapse, the instruction is don't go looking for great things for yourself.
Yeah.
What could great things even mean there? It hardly seems like the time to be, building a personal fortune or something.
Exactly. That's the key, isn't it? Given that everything is being overthrown, great things probably isn't about, like, needing food or basic shelter. It seems to point more towards personal ambition,
Okay.
like seeking status, or maybe trying to carve out a position of comfort and security for yourself while everyone else is facing disaster. Trying to
Yeah.
elevate yourself when God's plan is about bringing things down.
Right. It really puts personal ambition in a stark light, doesn't it? When the whole ship is going down, are you worried about getting a better cabin or just getting into a lifeboat?
Well, and that contrast is made even clearer by what God does promise Baruch. It's not greatness.
No. What is it then?
The Lord tells him, "For I will bring disaster on all people." So judgment is coming for everyone.
Yeah.
But wherever you go, I will let you escape with your life.
Escape with your life. That's it.
That's the promise.
That is incredibly stark. So Baruch wants rest from his pain. He's told not to seek personal greatness while the world's ending. And the ultimate divine favor promised isn't comfort or success or status. It's just survival. Bare survival.
hmm Amidst total disaster, just making it through with your life is presented as the gift, the sign of God's specific preservation. It radically shifts the focus from, human ideas of comfort and ambition
Yeah.
to God's perspective. It seems to be about preservation through this period of judgment. That's the core tension here, I think. Baruch's inward focus on his pain, maybe his hidden desires, versus God's big picture and the simple promise of life.
So, okay, let's bring this forward. How does this ancient story, this very specific conversation, how does it speak to us? I mean, we all feel pain, we get overwhelmed, we live in times that often feel uncertain, maybe even unstable.
Well, it really challenges our instincts, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Often when things get tough or scary, our default can be to sort of double down on securing our own comfort, our own security, maybe even strive for our own version of great things to build a safe little bubble.
Right, trying to insulate ourselves.
Exactly. And this passage suggests that, well, maybe during times of really significant upheaval, times when it feels like the foundations are shaking, perhaps that intense self-focus is, well, maybe it's missing the point. Maybe it's out of step with what's actually happening on a larger scale.
It implies the definition of great, or even what's worth chasing just changes dramatically when everything's in flux. Success looks very different.
It really does. I think the synthesized message is something like, when things are genuinely being dismantled, whether personally or societally, maybe the main goal shifts from striving and achieving to simply enduring, preserving life, preserving what's essential. It definitely puts ambition in a different context. A humbling one, perhaps.
It's such a powerful contrast, isn't it? Our very understandable human desire for comfort, for getting ahead, even when we're hurting, versus this divine perspective that, in crisis, might just value survival itself above all else.
Yeah, it forces you to ask, what are my priorities? When things feel like they're being overthrown and uprooted, what am I actually seeking?
Which leaves us with this final thought, maybe a provocative one, from Jeremiah 45. In those times of really widespread crisis, or maybe even just overwhelming personal pain, is simply aiming to escape with your life, preserving the core, the most realistic or even the most faithful ambition. What does it really mean in practical terms not to seek great things for yourself when everything feels like it's changing? Something for you to think about.